Hey guys, welcome back to Erudite Magic. My name is Jeff. In this video, we're going to be talking about a brand new book released by Hermetic Press. It is Resigned to Miracles. This book is by Peter Gröning. Sorry, I don't really know how to pronounce the little umlauts over the O. If you love all things magic book related, you're absolutely in the right place. So be sure to smash that like button, click subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any of our awesome content. First off, let me say that this book is extremely specific about a particular topological type of effect. So you're not getting a general magic book. What you're getting is a book of different methods to help you achieve one particular outcome. That outcome, though, is a very powerful outcome. What is the outcome you're trying to achieve? This book helps you to get a second signed card for free. What do I mean by that? Well, what I'm saying is that the author is postulating his theories and his methods so that you end up with a second signed card of which the spectator is unaware of. No, it's not real magic. And yes, the spectator does sign a card twice. However, the psychology behind the effects and methods are such that they don't remember doing so. I don't think I'm tipping too much to say that this is sort of Anniversary Waltz meets applied psychology. Now, Anniversary Waltz on its own is not going to get you where you need to be with this, but the first type of effect you're going to perform typically has that sort of feel to it. What you're left with is a card that is signed either on the face or the back. He gives you both ways to do it, and the spectator is completely unaware of that card's existence anymore. This means practically that if you're going to perform some of the other effects he gives you, or any other effect where you want a signed card that the spectator will not remember having signed, you may need time in between the first effect and the second effect to deploy what you want. So this probably isn't going to be practical for walk-around situations. It's far more applicable for those who perform in a platform or controlled environment setting. If you're a casual performer and you perform mostly for friends and family, there's some serious potential here because of course you could deploy the first part of the effect to get the extra signature and then wait days or even months later to perform the second effect. That's not necessarily required. Most of the effects that Mr. Gröning, you know what, I'm just going to go with Peter. Most of the effects that Peter gives you are available to be performed in a very short period of time. You'll just need some time in between that first effect and the second effect. Of course, it goes without saying that you'll need the same person to have signed the card. So it's obvious that you're getting the method. What about the tricks themselves? What about the things in the book? Peter gives you 4 different methods, if you will, to obtain the extra signatures, depending on your circumstances. So there are plenty of options here. The first option may be that you want 2 people to have signed the cards and end up with a card with both of their signatures. The other may be you're performing one-on-one for someone and you really want one signed, but because of the method involved, you're going to need 2 people to sign it, which may involve them signing it and you as the magician signing it. You may want 2 different people to sign it, but using a different colored card, so you would be deploying 2 different decks. Then he also gives you one final method which allows you to get what you need with the deck put away and you're basically just using a few cards in your hand. The book is broken down into 3 distinct sections. The first one talks about how to get into the position that you need and some tricks that you can do to get you to the position where you can get the person to sign the cards and kind of forget that they signed another card. In part 2, there are several really well fleshed out tricks that I think are a lot of fun to do, and then I feel like towards the final third of part 2, there's a lot of just ideas with quick snippets on practical solutions, but also things just to get the juices running. So what types of effects are you going to get with this? Because now you know what you're getting in terms of the big picture. Now specifically, are these tricks going to work for you, or are you even interested in performing them? One of the first ones is a mixture of effects. A person signs a blank card, and as you shake a card, the face becomes more and more clear on it until it appears and it has the person's signature on it. So the card is signed front and back, I should point out, and it goes from a blank card to a printed card with their signatures. Pretty cool effect. In a second effect, a card is transposed, a face of one card transposes to another card, again through kind of a shaking mechanism, and of course it's signed front and back. There are a couple of effects in here where someone signs an unknown card, and up in front there's been something on display the entire time, and you're able to produce their signed card from that item while clearly showing your hands empty. There's no real palming involved for that. One of my favorites in here is called Bizarre Assignment, and it's kind of a take on a mix between the bizarre Vanish and the bizarre Twist from Paul Harris's book. The effect is that a card is signed front and back. It's placed in between two jacks where it vanishes and reappears in the deck. The card is then put back in between the jacks and it turns the other way. Finally, the card visibly changes colors from in between the two jacks, and remember, it's been signed the entire time. Pretty cool. There's a version in here of card under bottle or glass where if you're performing that type of routine several times with a signed card, you could end up with the finale of the signed card in a bottle, potentially even a sealed bottle. The description on this is shorter, and I think they're more to inspire you than to give you a step-by-step process of how to make that happen. In case you thought that this book was only cards, it is not. He gives you ideas on how to do this with other objects, including a coin routine where you end up giving the spectator an impossible souvenir, a double-faced coin with both of your signatures on it after fusing together two separately signed coins. If you're thinking about performing an effect that will be remembered forever and potentially have the person keep the souvenir for a very long time, this would be the effect. Of course, it's going to cost you a bit of money with the gimmicks involved, but it could be worth it depending on your unique situation. Also, in this final third of the book, he talks about the different torn and restored card effects that require a signed card, and I think this part really ignited my imagination because this solves a lot of problems with torn and restored card routines. Or at least it opens up the possibilities within the torn and restored card routine you're already doing. I meant to mention this earlier, but this kind of book reminds me of the old Ben Harris books. Very topological, typically offbeat things with cards. And in this section about the torn and restored card, it gave me a solution for a trick that I bought a long time ago from Ben Harris, Hoodwinked. Many of you are probably familiar with it, but I'm not going to spoil anything about Hoodwinked or this particular book and the method involved. But if you deploy what Peter talks about, then you have solved some of your problems with Hoodwinked and you're able to hand out a completely impossible souvenir. Section 3 actually is a few tricks that don't rely on a second signed card, but they still have that signed card type vibe to it. One of my favorite tricks in the book, Torn Between Two Worlds. Essentially, two different cards are signed on their faces, and with very little in your hands, you end up tearing the cards and end up fusing the two torn halves back to back so that the spectator is given half a card with their signature on both sides. I know that sounds like it could be obvious to magicians thinking through the method, but I promise you the psychology behind this is not at all obvious, and I believe this could be an extremely powerful effect in your arsenal for a close-up effect. At the beginning of this review, I alluded to the fact that even if you're not interested in buying this book, you should hear me out because I'm going to give a tiny little rant here about playing card magic. As I was reading through this book, I kind of had an epiphany. It came to me all of a sudden that to become more memorable with your magic, which is what we want to leave lasting impressions and lasting pictures in the minds of our audiences, we need to do more weird stuff with cards. For example, we need to have more cards signed. We need to have more cards torn. That's right, I said you need to be tearing more cards. Did that make you uncomfortable? Tearing or otherwise destroying cards really makes you unique in the minds of your spectators, because if you're going to do something with a torn card, nobody does that. This is going to be different. In addition, it opens up the possibility for real magic, because when you just find a card, location is not magic. Transpositions are magic, restorations are magic, but finding a card? Try describing one of your favorite card magic tricks. Too much of magic focuses around this finding a card, and really we need to be doing more strange things with cards, which I think is why Paul Harris's magic has been so popular over the years, because he does a lot more than just finding the spectator's card. When you destroy, tear, or have cards signed, you're opening up possibilities that get your spectators to pay attention. If someone's just touching cards, that's what people normally do with cards. They just touch them. However, if you sign them or tear them, you're really doing something strange, something that will grab the audience's attention and cement in their minds, this was different. The cool thing about this book is that it gives you a whole myriad of possibilities to have cards signed, and then later do something even more magical, like a production from an impossible location, a restoration, something truly magical. Not only that, it shows our audiences that we're not cheap. There's nothing worse than having a magician pull out an old ratty deck of cards to do something with, and it's obvious that these cards have been around for a long time. It makes you look cheap, and when that happens, everybody around you knows that you're cheap and what you're doing is cheaper. It's easy enough to elevate your magic by simply destroying more cards. And if you're uncomfortable with destroying your own cards, borrow someone else's deck. Let's talk for a second about production values. The book is beautiful. It is a hardbound book, and it comes with a very nice dust jacket that's highly attractive. It's not a large book, as you can tell. It's about 120-ish pages. It ended a bit abruptly for my tastes. You have the final effect and boom, that's it. There's no kind of outro. There was a little tiny piece at the back that said, hey, thanks for reading this. I no longer do card magic, but I hope you get some value out of this. Nothing wrong with it. It didn't leave me lacking, just was very abrupt. The cost may seem high to some people, but cost is what you pay, value is what you get. And if you could fit something into your act with a signed card of which the spectator is unaware, this could be very powerful and totally worth the money. For me, it was worth it just to expand my thinking and my horizons, to go beyond the obvious. He didn't even talk about replacing a torn and restored card, but the bit about Hoodwink that I talked about was an inspiration for me, and then the thinking that I got about I need to be destroying more cards to make my card magic more powerful and more memorable in the minds of my spectators. That alone was probably worth the $40 to me. In addition, I'll point out that book costs are rising. It's inflation. Burgers don't cost $0.25 anymore, and you can't go see a movie for 10 cents. So I think that we just have to get used to the new normal, that even small hardcover books are going to be in that $40 range. I'm not sure what other book I would recommend if you were thinking about spending $40, because this one is very specific and very topological. So if you're interested in this, I don't have anything else to recommend. If you are interested in buying the book, I'm going to put a link down in the description below to help you order what I think is a very nice book. As a Hermetic Press book, you know that it's going to be well written. Stephen Minch was involved and was thanked at the beginning, and then Tony Dunn did the illustrations, so you know that they're going to be top-notch. All in all, I recommend this book if you are thinking about getting more specific. I don't recommend this to beginners because I think that there are other things that you need to learn first. And if you don't have the Paul Harris books, for example, I think those would be a great foundation before you dive into something more specific like Resigned to Miracles. If you have any questions about this book or this review, as always, I am an open book. And until next time, keep reading.